Hello there guys and welcome to another episode of Genuine Chit-Chat. This week I'm joined by the actor, presenter and all-around great conversationalist, Tom Everatt. Now I had a nice long conversation with Tom that has actually been split into two parts. So this week is part one, part two will be out at the same time next week. All Patreons get access to part two early. Basically I've now added another tier which is as little as £1 a month, and if you go on that you get the air quotes bare bones experience of Patreon, and you just get access to the feed which has our Afterthoughts show, which is 1 or 2 episodes a week, and then also whenever there's a two-parter, you'll get access to the second part at the same time you get access to the first part, all in one unsplit episode. So make sure you check that out. Just in brief, me and Tom speak about our mutual friend, Tonya Todd, shout out to Tonya Todd, and how we both spent time on our show, how we met and that sort of thing. And then we speak a little bit about Norse mythology, humans' desires for deities and religion. Tom then talks about his time as a tour guide, why he then became an actor, and there's a couple of cool stories in that. And also we speak about introspection and whatnot. So that's generally what you can expect from this part. Anyway guys, aside from that, I'm just going to let the conversation get started. I will be back at the end to give you guys information on what happens in part two and the other stuff that I've got planned over the coming weeks. So, here is Tom Everatt. Welcome to Genuine Chit-Chat, where we have honest conversations with interesting people. And I'm your host, Mike Burton. I am here today with Tom Everatt. Tom, it's wonderful to have you on the show. We were narrowing on slightly before pressing record and things about a great many things, including our friend Tonya Todd. So to kind of get into that, how do you know her and what do you do? That doesn't have to be answered in that order.
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for having me on, Mike. A pleasure. Looking forward to it. Hopefully I'm interesting enough to carry on with this genuine chit-chat.
I'm sure you are.
So I am an actor. I have been professionally acting for, I guess it would be seven years now, yeah, professionally. Which is a good thing to say. You always sometimes forget that because I'm not a famous actor, but I am a professional actor. It's a good thing to say and remind yourself because we need all the help we can get, especially after the last year. We'll come on to that. How I met Tonya Todd is a mutual friend. It was I guess by chance really. I being an actor don't always work as an actor. There's a good saying, something like 90 of the 100% of actors that there are, there's 95% at any one time aren't working. 1% are probably the rich and famous, and the ones that are very successful. But even they're not working 100% of the time. You have weeks off, months off, maybe. Then there's also maybe like 2% that are doing probably very low paid sort of not almost free work, profit share work. And then there's the other 2 or 3%, and that's, what you're probably going to end up being. So really, there's a good 97% chance you won't be working at any one time. So we always have side jobs. My last one was one that I loved. It was tour guiding, but I was a coach tour guide, which I'd sort of done lots of other different sort of bits of tour guiding. I work in London, used to do bicycle tours and things like that, and the hop on, hop off buses, which were a bit monotonous, if I'm honest, as a tour guide. Very interesting for the people because I sold it so well. But yeah, and then I did coach touring, which was taking people out of London to places like Windsor Castle, R.I.P. Prince Philip, God rest his soul, and also to Stonehenge, Canterbury Cathedral, Bath, Salisbury Cathedral. We'd go to Stratford upon Avon, about Shakespeare, Warwick Castle.
I stayed there last year. Did our summer, instead of doing a big European trip, me and Megan, we did like a trip around England. Went to the Lake District, went to Stratford upon Avon, Liverpool, and planning on doing another one this year. So I've been there. Huzzah! I couldn't go to anything cool because it was all closed, but I walked around.
It's very pretty, isn't it? It's almost like it's sort of very Tudor-esque kind of place. Yeah,
I love it. That sort of type of things, whether it's those type of buildings or cobbled streets, or both. Those sort of things I love, because obviously Winchester's near both of us, and Chichester, they've got quite nice stuff. But so continue.
So I was doing a tour. I can't remember which one it was. I think a popular one, Windsor, Stonehenge, and Bath, and was doing that. And at the end of the tour, she approached me and said that she was writing a book and about a tour guide, and would it be possible to ask me some questions as well? So about what it's like to be a tour guide, and I think apparently her character for the book was also an actor as well, so it was almost almost meant to be.
She wrote you into existence. Actually, that's what's really happened here. Tonya Todd is this 1,000-year-old witch. She said this on my podcast. Yeah. She's like hundreds or thousands of years old, and she's just written you into existence. That's the truth.
Yeah, it's literally like I'm Will Ferrell in that film, and Emma Thompson's writing a book, but I can't remember the film.
I think it's called.
Yeah. So like every time I'm brushing my teeth or something, and she's what? Someone's narrating my life right now. She's pulling the strings.
How many years ago was that, out of interest?
That must have been 2019, start of 2019, somewhere in the sort of somewhere between January and May. It must have been. I don't know when. It was sometime in the spring, I think.
Yeah, I met her at the wrong time then, because I haven't met her in person. Funnily enough, I've done. Gosh, she's been on this podcast 3 times, and I've been on her podcast, and we speak on like Facebook and stuff a little bit as well. And then we did another Zoom call with someone else who's a podcaster as well. So I've spoken to her a fair amount, but I started speaking to her. I should know this. It's probably about a year and a bit ago, I think. I can't remember how we explicitly got connected. There's so many people and threads where I'm like, I knew this. Yeah. Like you meet this one person through that podcast, and then they introduce you to another 10, and then some of them, because I've met a few people through Tonya Todd as well. So you were tour guide, and then she basically just wanted to interview you for a book. Essentially, you guys just stayed in contact, really. Yeah,
basically. And then after that, we spoke a bit. She obviously went back to America. She's if anyone's not listened to the podcast with her in it, that she's from America.
I should have been saying that. I'm the host. I should be putting all the little footnotes. Like, nice job, though. I just assume, hey, everyone listeners, listen to all my podcasts. I know that's not the case, though.
She's world famous, within this podcast. She's so she went. We didn't obviously. We didn't have lots of conversation. She did mention about, I know someone is filming something in London, and maybe you could get involved. But yeah, we did end up through last lockdown, so mid 2020. She co-wrote a film with another American friend, B. Danielle Kins. I'm sure it's B. Danielle, and they sort of wrote this film called The New Normal, which was about dating on sort of over Zoom and that kind of thing, which is very I haven't seen it. It's still not come out yet. I'm worrying they're going to miss the boat because lockdowns are going to finish soon, and no one's going to be doing Zoom dates anymore. But apparently it looks very good. But it's I'm not too sure what's happening. So yeah, we kind of reconnected through that, and then since then I did one of her podcasts, read to my partner, which was 52 lessons of love.
Yeah, I was on there as well with Megan. Yeah, we did like February time. I'll have to listen to yours then, because that's interesting. We actually did poetry to each other, me and Megan did, funnily enough. So I think they're quite similar.
Yeah.
We got the choice, and we were like Megan's a teacher. We're like, can't really do the more saucy ones on air, just in case. So it was like, poetry. That's lovely.
Did you write a poem?
Yeah, we each write a poem to each other to read it on air. So I've only ever written 2 poems in my life, and I was saying on the podcast I'm the greatest poet ever, but I'm only writing these 2, and there's this one for Megan there, and I wrote one about a friend of mine called TJ. Actually, she's been on the show twice. She was on my 2nd ever episode, and she lives in Bristol now, I think. So I just, some of my friends who are close friends, like when they're around the area, I'm like, come on the podcast. As soon as they move away, even though the majority of my podcasts are over Zoom and things, I just forget about them. So TJ hasn't been on for a little while, but it's on Facebook, all that sort of jazz. But like, I did mention TJ for a reason of some sort, and that reason was, I don't know. I said before we started recording, didn't I, that I'd get to a point and I'd completely lose myself.
Oh, I do this all the time. This is fun.
Yeah, it's one of those. Poetry, that was it. It was because she organised this poetry night thing, and I decided to go because a while ago I went, like before Megan or anything, I went on essentially a date to a poetry slam, is that what they call?
Yeah.
And I was I was not looking forward to it, bluntly. I'm not overly a fan of poetry, but then I went, and about a quarter of them were horrendous, and about half of them were okay, but about a quarter of them were genuinely really brilliant and clever, very much more spoken word. And I like quite a bit of rap music, and I do like a degree of spoken word anyway, so I think it was just that the lines between what's kind of pompous poetry and, it depends how pompous one is to see how pompous they view poetry, but you know what I mean, sort of that stereotypical poetry that's just a bit of nonsense. And I saw that and I thought, I'm going to write a poem. I was like, so I decided to, and it's quite an angry poem. This was years ago. And it's about, it's an open letter to God. And it's basically, I just made it rhyme and was basically questioning God. It was when I was much more atheist than I am now. I'm still an atheist, agnostic atheist, depends on the day. But I wrote this poem and then I read it out, a poetry slam thing. And then I did that poem with Megan, and they're the only two poems I've ever written. I have no desire to ever write a poem again. Out of interest, did you write a letter? If you don't mind going into some of the details of what you did on the podcast
sure
preview.
I so in our episode we wrote I had to read had to makes it sound like a kind of opposite to what the point of the podcast was about. It's about 52 things to do, one a week to increase the intimacy with your partner. So I was forced to read this thing to her. I could read anything, so I read a chapter from. I'm going to show you the book, even though I know you're not recording the video. But yeah, Neil Gaiman's Norse Mythology. Which,
Neil Gaiman.
Yeah,
good choice.
It was.
I haven't read that, but
it's really good. If anyone's interested in particularly after Marvel, if anyone is interested in particularly the Norse gods, Thor, Loki, Odin, etc., then it's sort of in small. It's done in I say small chapters. Each one takes 10, 15 minutes to read. They are the Norse gods. They're not the Marvel versions of the Norse gods, of course. So they have more faults. They have, Thor is mostly rage and doesn't tend to think about things. Not quite as charismatic, but it is a really, really good read. It's also interesting. I know I have watched all the Marvel films. It was a lockdown task that we went through. Which sort of my sister. I live with my sister, and she wanted to do it, and I thought, "There's no way." I don't care how long this lockdown lasts. There's no way we're going to get through them all. There's just too many. And I think once we started, we're watching 2 a day. We did
the same.
It took less than most
like a series.
It became like a series. Yeah. So we got through them so quick. But I had read quite a bit of the book, and the things that I'm sure also, I don't know if that links back to the comic book writers that wrote it originally, but there's so much in it from the Norse side. I think, I know this story. I've read this story. Why do I know this? Oh my God, they're actually in a Marvel way doing it exactly like the mythology, almost exactly like the mythology. Things about how the people that made Thor's like the daughter. It's Peter Dinklage, who makes it. Peter Dinklage, who plays Tyrion Lannister.
But yes, in Endgame, the dwarves of the stars.
Yeah,
I can't remember what they're called.
And all that was, kind of like there's parts of the same story in that they have his brother, and and you think that I know a bit of the backstory here that they're alluding to, but potentially the Marvel fans won't know because I know the Norse mythology. So it is actually really interesting if anyone is massively into it, and it's a wonderful book because it's written as if he's like he's sat around a fireside and reading you a story, and it's said in a really nice way that kind of is, you could read it at a fireside, it makes it feel like that at a campsite or whilst you're out with friends. So I chose to read that to my girlfriend, and it went really well actually. It was a really nice thing to do. I did have toothache at the time, and but there we are. That's another story.
That's nice and romantic, and then toothache.
I was in pain for the first half.
Amazing. It's funny because Neil Gaiman, I've been hearing him a lot recently because I've been the last sort of few years of my life where I've got this podcast, the air quotes main one, which has been going it'll be 4 years in September, and I got my other podcast, which is a Star Wars podcast. It's just about Star Wars comics, and that's on a feed called Comics in Motion. They have a different episode, a different show each day of the week, all different creators and things making stuff. And essentially, because I've been doing a lot of comic podcasts, I've been interacting with people who are into comics a lot more and things, and recommending me all kinds of comics I've never heard of, like Miracle Man by Alan Moore, which I've just finished reading, Sandman by Neil Gaiman, Swamp Thing also by Alan Moore, and there's sort of, I keep hearing Alan Moore and Neil Gaiman's names a lot, and aside from watching the TV show Good Omens, I I'd never really heard of Neil Gaiman, so I just keep seeing his name pop up, and out of interest, because I'd heard of him sort of peripherally, but I didn't know really any of his works aside from probably the last year or so. I was intrigued if you know anything about Neil Gaiman at all either.
No, so I the way I came about it, and this is a good link, is because, well, apart from Good Omens, that's the only thing I've heard about until I sort of looked into him a bit more, because I thought, oh, he writes things for TV as well, and actually I think he's done a few interesting things that possibly even I've watched, and I can't remember what they are now. But the way I heard about him was on a tour, a theatre tour, which I will be doing again this year. Different play, same tour, almost. And one or two of the other guys, one of the other guys on the tour was reading that Norse mythology book, and someone else had read it, and they kept talking about how great it was. And I was after that tour, I was flying to Australia. I was going like a long holiday to Singapore and Australia, and I thought, oh, I'll get a book, because I've not. I had a Kindle, but I actually bought a book, and I think that year I'd read a lot, but not in book form. So I bought that as my kind of book to read on planes whilst I was doing these sort of 13-hour flights and 7-hour flights, and then another 23-hour journey a few weeks later. So that's how I ended up buying it. But it was only sort of through word of mouth, really. And I've always found the Norse, I guess there's something a bit more interesting about the Norse gods. I find I am an atheist, but I do find the fact that there is human beings have always been interested in religion. I've always found always had a higher power. Every community, civilization, or whatever, have always had someone a group of gods. So, but they're all so interesting and different, and the Norse ones in particular, probably some of the most flawed. And but you learn through their stories, but their stories tend to go badly for them, for a lot of them, or particularly for Loki and Thor and a couple others. So that's why I just thought they were quite interesting. So it was,
yeah, because it's like the Roman gods and the Greek gods as well. Like they're all the sort of they are all very interesting ideas, and I'm like you. It's one of those things with religion, which is I was in primary school. So for Americans, I think I always get it confused, but basically from the age of 5 to like 10-ish, 10 or 11, in school, I went to a Catholic school. Neither of my parents were Catholic. I think my mum's vaguely religious, and my dad was agnostic. So it's like I went to Catholic school with my parents who didn't believe, and then I had lots of questions to a lot of the teachers that they couldn't answer, and then that kind of, for a lot of my teen years and stuff, I don't like to use the term necessarily militant atheist, because it makes it sound like I'm being violent or something, but I was a proper, a dick about it, basically, where people were being, not I wouldn't go up to someone who's clearly religious and have a go at them, but it was more so in a setting with friends and stuff. If we talk about religion, my opinions would just be so hardlined on, it's wrong, it's, and now I'm more like, there are aspects that I disagree with, aspects that I, agree with in principle in a lot of ways. But my main thing is I just don't believe in a deity.
Yeah.
If other people do, that's completely, their thing, as long as, you don't be a twat to anyone else because of that belief. I don't really care. But it is interesting, because I remember, I think it was some sort of, I don't know if it was a documentary. I think it was probably like a 5-minute YouTube video or something. But it was something like brain scans of people who were atheists, who, the kind of people who would wait outside of an Apple store when a brand new Apple product's released, but waiting there from like midnight, waiting there for like 6 hours, camping out the shop. People who have that sort of, what's the term? Product. It's like product worship. The same parts in their brains that go off when they see the Apple logo is the same thing as a Christian when they see a cross, or with someone who is a Jew and they see the Star of David. It's very interesting of like the air quotes, the term I think has been thrown around in a lot of alternative music I like is the new gods. And I know it's not just there, but sort of the new gods are basically money and capitalism, consumerism and greed. So it's very interesting you brought up that point of sort of the intrigue into the sort of people always needing gods. Yeah,
like a reliance, a dependence, and something that they can turn to that isn't necessarily, or maybe reliance is a word. because I guess a faith that people have, and I think blind faith is something that I've always I struggle with. I don't really know how you could have fantastic to people that do. I don't mean to sound that condescending. That genuinely, that's fantastic if people can.
Oh no, of course. I know what you're saying. It's one of those things where it's like, it's amazing you've got it, but I don't know how you've got it. Almost, it's like it's one of those weird things, isn't it? Where it's almost like I really wish I could believe when I die I go to heaven. Like if I could, if you could tell me if there's some way I could just do that without it compromising anything else I think, then that would be cool, because it would just make death slightly less crap for people. But it's like I just don't. There's that disconnect. I can't.
It would. I mean, wouldn't it be so much better if we all, if we went to heaven? I know I listened to one of your other podcasts, and the argument about what heaven actually is, and I agree with that as well. But it sounds so nice, doesn't it? And it does sound miserable to go, to turn into nothing. But do we turn into nothing because we have energy that floats through? I wouldn't say I'm a particularly spiritual person, but I don't think you can, from all the science that we have, at least our bodies, the energy that's given out from our bodies, it goes through into the ground, into something else, and the circle of life, like the Lion King says, I suppose. And through our DNA, that is. Yeah, I remember Richard Dawkins saying something. I'm going to completely bastardize it now and get it completely wrong, but it's sort of saying about how our DNA that passes through each generation of our ancestors, there's a way that sort of it repeats itself. That was almost like I can't remember exactly what it is, but he basically labels it as if that is as closest thing to the human soul that we could scientifically argue is that it is DNA passing through. He put it in a much more interesting way that sounded enticing. Yeah.
He's one of the greats, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, a lot of those intellectuals where you hear them talk and you go, man, you're so clever. And you think, I'll listen to hours of you talk and I'll be clever. And you listen to hours and then I can paraphrase like 5 sentences and one word that sounds clever, and that's it. But I totally get what you're saying, and I agree in a lot of ways. It's there's the two parts there, isn't there? Because with what Dawkins was saying, I've heard something not different to that, but I've heard something else which was like trauma can travel through genes. So like that's why a lot of people are scared of spiders and snakes and things when they've never had a traumatic experience explicitly with. Obviously there's nurture, which is if your parents freak out when a spider happens, you'll just be freaked out as well. But there's other theories which are like, if your great blah 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 ancestors, if one of them was bitten by a spider and then died, then that would cause such trauma to your tribe or people around or whatever, then that trauma, if it's so strong, it can travel through genes, and therefore that could be a reason, that's one aspect that's interesting. But the other thing I wanted to pick up on was the energies thing, because I don't know how much I said, because you said you listened to the episode I did, or the majority of it with Jack Thomas of Just Conversations pod, that sort of good and evil thing, and I went on his show about a year. I think everything is about a year ago. Since COVID, everything is now either 1 or 10 years ago.
Or the other day, and it was 4 months ago now. And you think, exactly. We do that anyway. But normally enough things have happened in between. You think, was it? Oh no, it was a couple of weeks ago actually. But yeah, whatever. It wasn't that far.
You've got some pillars.
Yeah,
you've got some sort of like timestamp. But it's like, what have you done for the last 3 months? Watch TV series with my partner. There's nothing else to do.
Yeah, I mean, I know a bit of a spoiler alert to when the people are listening, but it's April now. Like I swear it was New Year's a few days ago.
I know it's absolutely mental.
Yeah, it's it is. Yeah, remember last year, sort of, I don't know, the memes going around of this is the fastest, slowest year that's ever happened. I think, how has a whole month passed? But I've not done anything.
I find it's the little jobs that always get me in lockdown. It's the things where we're like, me and Megan, we're living in a flat, and we had this mirror that we just wanted to put this mirror up. We were like, kept putting it off for like 3 or 4 months. And we're like, that's it. Let's do the mirror. Let's just get it over and done with. It took like 5 minutes. But it's been a mirror in the hallway for like 4 months.
Yeah.
And then just little things like that where you look at it and go, God, that's too much for a big job for today. I've got all the time in the world. Maybe it'd be tomorrow's job. And then you do that for a month. And then you're like, how long's that thing been there? I don't know, only a week, I guess. And then 3 months pass, and you're like, I think that's been there longer than a month.
You get used to it, don't you? like we had some. I've got a funny story. We had this is not the first one, but I was going to say we had some when my sister moved in, some like DVDs under the in the somewhere in the kitchen, and in a big box, a big box of DVDs, because no one watches. We don't have a DVD player. We had them for 2 years here. Like we need to get rid of these DVDs. But my dad he was planning to build a brick path around the house so he could so that his wife, my stepmom, could get from the front door round to the bins around the side of the house without the front garden gets boggy. So he decided he got all these bricks from work. He's a builder, and he bought them. He probably didn't buy them, but he got them, and he had them there ready to go. And he hasn't done it, and it's been so long that he thought, he's very into his history. Is probably where I get some of it from, with the coach tour guiding, telling these historical stories. But he said, told us the other day, and he was very proud of this, that he said those bricks have been outside the front of his house longer than the siege of Stalingrad. He's been because he looked it up, and he said, because I think he used to say it as a joke, those bricks have been out there nearly almost as long as the siege of Stalingrad, and it had been so long that he discovered the siege of Stalingrad was 2 years and 3 months, and those bricks have been there for 2 years and 9 months. So it's quite a long time. And that was about 4 months ago, I think, 3 months ago. So it's coming up to 3 years. And we went round it back at Easter, and Dad, build the goddamn path, because this is too long now. The Germans and the Russians, I don't know who's on your side. They'll all be furious. It's been too long.
That's amazing. Well, it's funny because I was linking back to the tour guide thing. I am intrigued because I love history, but I'm one of those guys that I unfortunately like a little bit of everything. Aside from, weirdly enough, I think sport and cars are the only things that I haven't really got the passion for. I like playing. It's funny, most of the sports I don't really like watching, like football, I like playing. Yeah. And then the other ones I don't like playing that much. I'm fine to watch. Like when the Olympics comes on, I think some of the gymnastic stuff is mental. Like when they do like a triple jump, and you're like, I can't even think that. How did you do it with your body? But generally sports are cool, but I've got that passion for it. In cars, I can drive. I just don't. I get in my car, listen to music or a podcast, and go. They're the only two things.
Definitely the same with cars.
Yeah. I know it's one of those things though. With like, everyone's got their thing or their things, but like I find generally everything interesting enough to go down countless rabbit holes or go to loads of museums about it and all that sort of stuff, but not commit to it enough to have a decent knowledge on anything. So I describe it as I think I do this from Adventure Time, which is I have an approximate knowledge of most things. So I can probably I have probably one or two sentences, or maybe like two. I like to think of the inside of my brain as just a billion post-it notes, and I've just got probably one post-it note on almost every subject matter there is, but no more than 3. Yeah. Aside from like 4 things. So I wonder, with you and history, have you got like the big passion for history, and that's always been a thing? Are you more of sort of a guy who likes relatively everything, and history was a part of that? I'm intrigued by your history love.
I didn't do history at school. I remember dropping it when you pick your GCSEs, because I thought it was, I think mostly because it was World War II and politics, and it was, I liked more ancient. I was more interested in ancient history because I could try to imagine those people or what they were doing, what they were going through, and
the Egyptians and that sort of thing as well. It's very intriguing.
Ancient Greece really was the one that I was really fascinated by. And then the politics side, obviously more interested. Where hard to say, you can't really say you love politics, can you? But that's more a part of my life now. But I was particularly not as well, when do you pick your 15? When you pick your GCSEs, 14 maybe?
Something like that. Yeah, at that sort of age.
Yeah, absolutely put me off. But I always liked the stories. And I think, I remember even when I was sort of learning some of the, sort of first learning the job, learning like parts of London or things you talk about, the people, like say Trafalgar Square, and learning about Nelson. There was things that were like parts of stories that I remembered, and I thought, I feel like I know half of this. When you watch something and it pops up and you think, I knew that. Like, I didn't know I knew that. I couldn't have told you 5 minutes ago. But when he said it, I know, I definitely knew that. And that is a thing.
It's like a zip file in your brain, isn't it? It's like a zip file in your brain, and then when they say the information, it extracts it. Like, I do know this.
Yes, I remember this. Yeah. And didn't he do that because and wasn't he putting a barrel of brandy at the end? Yeah. That was okay. So it was all the sort of the stories, and I think maybe I really enjoyed doing the job because a lot of the time you're not giving people necessarily a complete knowledge of the history of whatever you were talking about, the building or the royal family or whatever it might be, but you're sort of giving them like the basics. And really, when you have tourists, I think you're trying to entertain them. They're only going to be with you for potentially sometimes 15 minutes, or they might be with you for 12 hours, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing a coach tour, you're with them for 12 hours. My thing was try and entertain them as much as possible because it is a long day. We started at 7 o'clock 8 o'clock in the morning. We first meet at about 7:30 in the morning, and we're going to be with each other till 8 o'clock in the evening. And if you find me boring in the first half an hour, this is a long day for you. and I want to get those tips as well because so does the driver, because we split the tips. And the drivers are more pushy than the tour guides, but they don't ask for it. So it was more about finding good stories, or trying to find any way to make him into a joke as well. Because people remember jokes more than they remember facts. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but they'll remember.
That's probably the funniest joke so far. Yeah. It's just that's a brilliant joke. Yeah. The joke. People remember jokes way better than they remember facts. I can't remember any good jokes.
Really good jokes. Yeah. Here's an easy one. So the Shard, tallest building in Western Europe. It's 72 stories high. It's incredible, 72 stories high. They were going to make it 73, but that's another story. It's a bad joke, but it's the first one that came to my head.
That's a good bad joke.
It's a good one. Yeah, good bad joke. So, but people will go, it was 72 stories. And also, what's good about that joke is it works by any building. They were going to make it. It's 3 stories high, that one. Yeah. They were going to make it 4, but that's another story. Every time works like a charm. Yeah.
You just could per tour group you can only use it on one building. You try and play around. So I tried it with a Shard last week, but this week I'm going to try it on this one. Oh, what about that random building over there? I've got a story for that one. Let's do the story joke on that building. Yeah.
People hated it. They said, "We're at Stonehenge. Why is he talking about the Shard? I don't even know where that is."
Oh man! So did you, when you got into because that's one of those jobs where not to be rude, but I hadn't thought of that as a job, in the sense of, if you said to me, write down 100 jobs, please, librarian, a teacher, I don't know. I've been watching Buffy, so probably librarians probably Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Vampire Slayer as well.
Before we chatted. Yeah, that's a good job.
Paid,
yeah, perfect. No, not very. But I suppose if you kill vampires that have got gold and stuff, you could probably take some of their stuff. I'm not sure. I know they don't have any silver. I'm not sure about gold. But it's one of those things where, like, I've travelled around a little bit and things about both inside of England and also outside of and around Europe and stuff, and I've been to Mexico as well. That's about it. But like with tour guides, it's one of those things where I hadn't really thought of, but obviously you do spend a lot of time with them, and you have to know a lot of knowledge. You have to be presenting, but I would presume there's quite a lot of there's a lot of knowledge that you not maybe don't have to know, but you kind of should know of those sort of things. Like whenever I'm in a tour guide, I'm the worst person because I have loads of questions.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, what's that? Oh, it's this thing. When was that made? And it's like certain questions you may not have the answer to, but I'm intrigued by, like, when you had the job, did they say you have to learn this amount, or was it kind of free to do what you want? I'm intrigued by the behind the scenes of that.
I think with the, when I started off doing the London tours, because I started off doing the bike. Because I mean, as my actor job before, I worked in a pub, and I think after about 3.5 years of doing that, it was really getting me quite down, because it was just I wasn't really using any of the skills that I'd set out to do. So at least if I was doing this other job, it was more presentative and using the actor skills.
It's like a warm up almost.
Yeah, and genuinely, I think sometimes I went to auditions after doing a day of tour guiding, and my voice was so much better than it would have been if I'd have been stood in a pub kind of just thinking about the audition. But with that, when I first got the first job I had was doing bike tours, and that was which is I highly recommend anyone who goes anywhere, or maybe even visits London, to do one of these tours, because there's so much such a relaxing way to get around. They don't go fast. It's not like a sports tour, isn't it? You just sort of leisurely cycle around. You get off, talk about somewhere, and then you get back on the bike and cycle for 5 minutes, and then you get off and talk about somewhere else. It's not like someone's not at the front of 15 people and trying to shout to the person at the back, because that just wouldn't work. But I think with that, we had set places that we were going to. So try and learn as much as you can. I think to start with, it was like trying to at least learn 3 or 4 things about these places. And sometimes a lot of them kind of overlapped, or you'd start learning a bit about them. There's about 2 or 3 of us that started at the same time. So we could kind of, when we were starting to take the tours, we would kind of work together a bit. So that was okay. And that gave me the grounding for their buses, the open top buses that go around, which are the ones that are a bit samey, because we all do them about 3 times a day, which is it's so boring, especially when people aren't getting on and off, and some people just use it for transport. Sometimes you've got a whole group of Italian and Spanish and French people and no one's speaking English, and you think, I don't know why I'm here. This is ridiculous. Not their fault, but no one's listening to you. And you think sometimes I would say, is anyone actually listening to me? Just put your hand up or wave at me if you are. No, I'm going to stop talking then. And then
have a little break.
Yeah, that wasn't too bad. But for that, there was a bit more of a strict structure, because you're kind of almost delivering a product, because it's almost the same thing over and over again, which is really why I didn't like it. And then with the coaches, again, it was a bit different. I think when you toured around London, you have to learn a lot about almost everything. Almost the knowledge was a bit more, because people are getting off and on as well. You're not dealing with the guests, tourist customers as much. You're just kind of sending them off and letting them know, you can buy your tickets for the Tower of London from the guy in a blue jacket down there. That's where you go. Whereas when we did the coach tours, you don't have to have as much knowledge necessarily, not when you're sort of doing the tour, but people will ask questions, and because you're with them for so long and you get to know each other through a 12-hour day, it's more expected that people will have and will be more interested. Now they are going to go into let's say Windsor Castle. They are going to go in there, and they are going to learn undoubtedly more inside the castle than they can learn from me on a bus for 20 minutes before we get there. Plus, also, it is a bit like herding cats. You've got to make sure they know where they're going, where the toilets are. That's a big one. How to get back to the coach, and all these things as well. So you give them a bit of an introduction, because I guess, say Windsor Castle, some people on the coach they don't know anything about the English royal family. It might sound hard to imagine even for people from America listening to this, like, oh yeah, but everyone knows a bit. But people don't. And, if someone's from whatever country they're from, England or America included, might have zero knowledge. They don't know anything, the past, the different, who built this when, how long's that been there? How long's Windsor Castle been there, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to give quite a basic introduction, because they're going to learn so much more inside anyway. And then it really is a case of making sure they get in, making sure everyone who's supposed to get in gets in. And if they haven't prepaid for a ticket, they don't nick someone else's. That comes back at you. There's a lot, yeah. And there's an amazing thing about being a tourist, because I did it even when I was doing this job a lot. Went on holiday to somewhere, Prague, and I did a tour. So I was like, no, we have to do a tour, because I do tours, and I know that you get so much more from a tour guide than us thinking we know better. So come on, it's €10 each, that's fine, and then we give them a tip at the end. And it doesn't matter. Even I fell into the trap of people forget all the rules of walking into things, walking into traffic, oncoming traffic. You really have to protect. I've got a group of 50 tourists, and they've just walked out into this opening, and they've just seen Windsor Castle, towering above them, and it does look incredibly impressive. And all they want to do is take pictures whilst looking at it, and without noticing that there are oncoming buses. And you think, oh God, please stop walking. Please listen to me. You have to be really loud and make sure that they're aware. But we all do it. Because I was doing it. I was in Prague. I walked into a tram almost. So I don't know what happens. It's the group thing, I think, the group mentality. Someone is looking after you, so they think they can go anywhere that they would like to go, and without getting knocked over. Yeah,
the diffusion of responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we like that as human beings. I think it's it's comforting.
The more people there are, the less the individual tends to think.
Yeah.
And that in some ways, it can be all right. Normally when it's like survival and stuff, it's quite cool. But then when it's like remedial things, or when there's, fast, hard objects nearby, you kind of need to have someone thinking for yourself. But
yeah.
I mean, I'm the same. It's literally, it's one of those weird things, isn't it? Because like, it's one of those things like customer service is a good one. Like I work in insurance at the moment and things, but I've worked in other customer service jobs, but I still talk to people sometimes when they're angry about something or other. In insurance, it's normally because they've hit someone and think somehow the person they've hit is at fault, which happens quite a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Well, why do they stop so suddenly? I hit them in the rear. Well, if you had a bit of distance between you, it wouldn't matter when he stopped, because you'd have had time to stop before hitting him. But then I've hit people in the rear. Like I've done in driving both before.
Is that out of context? Is that I have hit people in the rear. It's good. It's good. Good thing to admit.
In the vehicle, vehicle to vehicle, bumper to bumper, not literally. That's a story for genuine Chit-Chat after dark. But yeah, it's one of those things where, like, I know the road rules. The majority of car incidents are hitting people in the rear, normally because either someone's looking at their phone, at traffic lights or something, or they go in a corner a little bit too fast. Like, I've hit 2 people in the rear while driving, and one was in a country lane sort of area, round a corner that was too narrow, and I was just a little bit too close behind this woman. She braked suddenly for one reason or another, and I didn't have enough time. And another time it was raining, and I didn't give enough of a stopping distance. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I'm like, after it happened, you're just like, I've just cost myself, obviously I've inconvenienced this other person's day, but I've cost myself money on insurance and things. And I literally tell people, in trying not to be patronising, but it doesn't always work, to say, don't drive so bloody close to people.
Yeah.
And then I do it.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where it's like, no helping us humans. There's no helping at all. I wanted to ask then, sort of in line with the sort of presenting side of things, obviously one of the things in one of your many jobs, but the sort of the main job is being an actor, and you do a lot of stage performance and things. And I'm intrigued to know sort of about that. So when you entered the realm, when you decided I'm going to go into the world of being an actor, did you think, I want to do stage stuff, I want to do camera stuff, I want to do adverts and commercials? What did you want to do, and how? What did you want to do? And we'll go from there.
Yeah, it's an odd one, because I never really. There's one point where I think, maybe that was when I first wanted to be an actor. But I don't remember how old I was. I think there was a time when I was. I must have been under 7, because I'm sure it was in my parents' first house, or not first house, the first house that I lived in. They had about 3, I think, before then, but it was the first house I'd lived in. And I'm sure we moved out of there when I was 7. I could have been 10. I don't know. Maybe 7, I'm sure. And I seem to remember watching a James Bond film. Not well, we all were, I'm sure. And I remember thinking distinctly, I want to be him, but I don't want to be James Bond. I don't want to be the guy. Like, I think I had a good enough grasp. I want to be the guy that gets to be James Bond. Although there is also a story that I don't remember, but of when I was probably about 5, so not very long before this, going to London with, aunts and uncles, and we went to see Oliver Twist, and Bill Sikes has been shot at the end. Bill Sikes is the one that dies? Bill Sikes is the bad guy, isn't he? I should know. It should have been an actor.
I mean, I think so. I've seen Oliver Twist a million times when I was a kid, and then since the age of like 10, I watched it enough in the first 10 years of my life to not have to watch it for the next 20.
Yeah, Fagan's the good one, isn't he? Fagan's the one who wants to pick at a pocket or two. I don't know if he's necessarily good, but he's not, I think, the nice one. Bill Sikes is the bad guy, I'm sure. Anyway, oh God, if I've got that wrong. Anyway, anyone listening who knows I've got it wrong, I've got it wrong. I'm sorry. It's Oliver Twist. Get over it. Grow up. When I was about 5, I went to see it, and he gets shot at the end and falls off the roof. And I saw that, and I saw it happen with my own 2 eyes. He got shot, fell off the roof. He's dead. Definitely. I think they all said it. He's dead. He's gone. Hooray. The witch is dead. Ding dong, the witch is dead. I think that was the musical. And then they, at the end of the play, they all came on to bow. And I couldn't believe my eyes, Mike. Goddamn Bill Sikes is there. And 5-year-old me lost my shit and wouldn't let it go. He was screaming. I saw him die. I think because he upset me so much because he was so horrible. I saw him die. I knew he died, and he's back. How is this? What is happening? And it really, I was screaming the place. I had to be taken out. That was how bad it was. I was so upset. So 2 short years later, I've learned what acting is, and I want to be James Bond now. So I must have, maybe he made a very good impression of me. Whoever that actor was who played Bill Sikes, it would be wonderful to find out. circa 1995, who was playing Bill Sikes in London's West End, because God, do you know what? I've never thought to look into it, but I'm sure that's probably available information. Possibly.
I think you'd probably be able to find out if it was a big enough run. I think you'd probably quite easily, if you could just even get like, if it was a decent run, if there's like a program, or even if there, I mean, because it's quite a big character in Oliver Twist, so it would probably be in the main sort of lineup. You could probably find that out.
Yeah, interesting.
Find that out.
I'll look
then
into that.
Meet them and then act in something with them, and then kill them in the thing. Make a big fuss, and make sure you're the character who kills them in the thing, and then you'll have your revenge.
And then when we come out to the bow, and I lose my shit again. What are you doing here?
And crying.
I killed
just
you.
Freaking out.
Yeah, you'll confuse them.
Why won't you stay dead?
Damn Bill Sikes. Every night you come back.
Oh man,
but yeah. So I don't really know when I decided, or what. I don't really know when it necessarily hit me. But then I think through school, when I was going into that sort of SATs and GCSEs, through that teenage years, really sort of thought, is there anything I enjoy? I don't really enjoy. I don't like. I can do other subjects, and I'm good at them. I mean, I'm fine at maths, and I'm quite good at English, and I'm all right at science. It's fine. But, I hated French. I couldn't do languages. But I didn't really, none of them excited me and anything, but I really, really enjoyed doing drama. And then, I took that on to college. I went to university because I wasn't quite ready to go to a drama school, because it would have been wasted on me. I needed to go and get that sort of university years out of my system. I still studied drama. And there were some great drama facilities. I went to Birmingham University, and there were great facilities there. There's a lot of people that have gone on to do, in fact, probably more success from the people that I knew from the University of Birmingham than there are from my drama school, which is E15 Drama School. It's probably, at least from my year. So not going to name drop people in, but there are people that are doing incredible things from the university. And I think a lot of the good things from the university was that we just, apart from the course, just got to do plays, put on plays, produce plays, and you just sort of learnt by doing a bit, really. But then at East 15 at the drama school, the acting training, and I can't speak for what other courses are like, because there's 20 accredited drama schools in the UK, or at least there were when I went in 2013. I don't know if there might be 21 or 22 now. I don't know, actually. I think there were 20 back then. And the ones that are recognised as being the real deal sort of drama schools. And not to say the rest aren't very good. But
that's the most British sentence I've ever heard anyone say. You're apologising for people that probably aren't even listening. Sorry, guys. I'm really sorry. Your drama schools, you're not real, but you are kind of real, but you're not real. You're not prestigious enough, but you are. Don't worry. You're prestigious to me, but you're not actually prestigious, but you're okay for me. Fine. I know you're not real.
Yeah. And you're all rubbish. Anyway, so, the training from East 15 was very much about not really how to act. It was, they even said on the first day, like, we don't need to teach you. We know you can act. That's why you're here. But what we're going to teach you is about really who you are as a person. In our day-to-day life, we have so many different parts and aspects of ourselves that most people kind of hide or shut away, or, they don't need to access, because they don't necessarily need to bring out those parts of their character, potentially more the unfavorable part, the more aggressive, or the more sort of selfish, shallow, the more, the parts that aren't deemed right by most societies. Well, we need to unlock those and why you have those and where they come from in you, so that you can then access them in terms of being an actor. One of the first lessons we used to have, I think it might have even been on the open, maybe not, the open day when we were sort of, or a few months before going. It was, and it was said with all sincerity. It was a bit tongue in cheek, but the sentiment was there that, you want to spend the rest of your life being an actor, which means that you want to spend the rest of your life essentially pretending to be somebody that you are not. That is fucked up. Chances are something has happened to you in your past that has probably led you to this, something that could be, and normally it probably isn't the best of thing. It might be anything from, divorce or neglected parenting, or it might be abuse or other things, or moving schools is actually quite a big thing. Moving schools is a big one. All these things where you might have then, as a child, perhaps slightly pretended to be someone that you're not, or played a different part to fit in a new school, or slightly changed something about yourself. And when you did that, you got more attention or more praise or more, these things happen. And then, that's led on to possibly why you want to be an actor. Determinism, our past influence in what we do, and everything's linked in, which is a hark back to another podcast, but something I do believe in, which I think is a really important, maybe a topic for later, but an important part of being an actor, like actually believing in determinism. Because why does a character do the things he does? It all comes from somewhere. Anyway, so I think that is why and I don't really know what it is. I don't think I had great traumas in my life. I think, my parents divorced when I was 10, but it wasn't horribly traumatic. I remember being bullied slightly, but not in that bad of a way that I put it down to. I know, people had been bullied, and it really affected them. But I don't remember. And if it had, it was only for a short period of time. But something might have happened in that short period of time that then made me go, oh, well, I'm slightly different. Or, behave not like how I was behaving, but like this new version. I don't know. There's nothing that I can remember. I think that's probably part of the beauty of life, and why we think that all these things that we're choosing to do aren't influenced by our past, but actually, well, at least I believe that they are, because that's why we're doing them. And we don't know that that's what's happening. The illusion of free will. But it's there. It's just, we don't need to know why or where it came from. But it's happened. And there are probably things that have influenced. If you look at, I used to remember, I always do this. I'm horrible probably to watch films with, because I just sit there and go, oh, do you remember that guy? Oh, yeah. We saw him in a film before. He was in, he was also in this, and he was in that and the other. Oh, you don't remember him? That. Yeah, all the time. And whilst watching the film, I will be just looking at who the actors are. IMDb is my go-to straight away.
Yeah. Constantly, wait, this film, the directorial style of this as well. I recognise this. Who's the director? Oh, it's he made this film. Megan, do you know he made this film? It's like, I haven't seen either of that film or this film you're showing me.
You have. Remember it now. But then if you look at, quite often I look at the, I don't tend to do it anymore, but I used to look at the actors' biographies. I don't tend to do it anymore. But a lot of the time, the amount of times it would be, had parents in the military and were, you think, oh, maybe we've got quite authoritative parents, let's say, or they moved to school a lot because they were moving in different, places or whatever, and the amount of times it comes up and you think, there's something in that's, it's definitely there. It's a very interesting theory. And I actually think there is a lot of truth in for actors. We're all tortured souls, really.
And that's the end of part 1. Thanks as always for tuning in, guys. As I said in the intro, part 2 will be out next week, but if you support the show for as little as £1 a month, then you'll already get access to part 2 of this chat, as well as quite a few other unsplit episodes that I've already done, as well as the Afterthoughts show where me and Megan watch TV series and movies and things and talk about our thoughts on them. And each episode's, between 10 and 20 minutes long on average, but I believe the Spider-Man 3 episode has recently dropped on there, which is half an hour long, where Megan just completely slates Spider-Man 3 the whole time. It is hilarious. So if you want full unsplit episode, early access to stuff, behind the scenes things as well, future guest lists, and also the Afterthought show, several hours of extra content and whatnot, make sure you just check out Patreon. And if you aren't a supporter of the show, you can just go take a look, and there's the Star Wars Phantom Menace and The Witcher Season 1. They are both up completely for free. You might have to scroll down a little bit because they were uploaded a little while ago, but you will find them. So aside from that, guys, what have I got planned? We've got Matt from Classic Comics, from the Comics in Motion Network, where my Star Wars show airs. He's going to be coming on the show. Well, he's already come on the show. We've already had the conversation. But after I release part 2 with Tom, I'll be releasing, it's going to be another 2-parter, having a lot of long conversations recently. And it's about classic comics, old school comics from the golden age, and we talk about Star Wars, newspaper strips and things like that. It's a really, really cool conversation. I've also got quite a few other conversations planned. Tom and I think, are speaking either next week or the week after. I've also got Goff returning on the show. I've also got a conversation due with a very interesting gentleman who had quite a lot of hand in a certain character for Return of the Jedi, which I'm incredibly excited to speak with him. So I won't say any more than that, but I'm very excited about that. And there's a few other bits and pieces in the background as well. So, make sure you follow me on social media at Genuine Chit-Chat. Check out my Star Wars show at Comics in Motion. Check out Afterthoughts on Patreon if you fancy it. And if you want to support the show and you don't want to pay any money or anything, then please share on social media, tell your friends, review the show, and all that usual stuff. Anyway, guys, I think that's really everything. In the description of the episodes, I've included, details of Tom as well as Tonya, and I've also included details of the numerous guest spots that I've been a part of recently. So make sure you check that out too. Anyway, guys, I hope you have a great end of the weekend. Over here it's a bank holiday, so we get an extra day in the UK, huzzah. And yeah, I'll talk to you all next week.